Alabama by a final of 48-45 in what was probably one of the most surprising games of the season. What was your take from the game, and how crazy was that?
It was so crazy. The atmosphere was incredible. It was so high scoring, which I don't think was either of us expected because of Auburn's strong defense. But with 98 total points scored, and with Alabama's backup QB, Mac Jones, he really came to play, and their offense never faltered for 1 minute, and the Tigers fought right back, and it was not a slow game at any point.
Yeah, 515 yards from Alabama's offense. You would think that's going to propel your team to a win, but Auburn's defense hung around, and they were able to make big plays, including getting 14 points on the board for their team. How big was the defense's contribution, even though they kind of were tested, but they didn't falter in the end?
The defense's contribution was huge. They were pushed, but they pushed right back. And like you said, those 14 points scored on defense from interceptions, those really helped to propel the Tigers to victory.
Yeah, for sure. And then also the big play at the end on the final drive, they made the missed field goal happen with the pressure on the kick. But also the big play was Derek Brown in the play before that, batting down the pass from Matt Jones, because you never know where that was going. It could have been a touchdown to take the lead. So Auburn's defense can prove that they're able to make stops even when they're tested like this, and it was another classic. Now, also, let's talk about the offense, as they were able to have a big game, 181 yards rushing, and then Bo Nix threw for over 300. What does this tell you about the offense and where they're going right now as a team?
I think the offense has a lot of potential, and Bo Nix passed the freshman quarterback passing record at Auburn, and so I think that speaks a lot about his potential in the upcoming years and just how much room that they have to grow.
Yeah, for sure. And Bo also broke a freshman record that Stan White had when he played at Auburn. And Stan threw for 14 touchdown passes as a freshman. Bo now has 15, so that's a huge stat for him. Give him confidence going on into the rest of the season. Now, let's talk about bowl projections, as this weekend will be the unveiling of all the bowls as well as the college football playoff. And Auburn right now is in a good spot to get a really good New Year's Day bowl, maybe even a New Year's Six if things shake out the way they would want to. So what do you think Auburn will end up at? And it's looking like maybe in Florida, maybe in Texas, we'll see. But where do you think Auburn will end up?
I think sitting at 11, they have a pretty good chance at a good bowl game. But I think probably Citrus Bowl would be a good place for them to land.
Yeah, for sure. And Auburn would play a Big Ten team. It's looking like either Minnesota or Wisconsin, depending on how they end the season. Wisconsin does play Ohio State, so if they're able to beat Ohio State, they could move up. But also Auburn could be going to the Outback Bowl, as what ESPN is projecting, to play Michigan, which would be a big test because Michigan is a big team, always known in college football. But then there's also an outside chance of the Cotton Bowl, which would be a New Year's Six Bowl. They would play an AAC opponent in Memphis, it's looking like, if they win their conference championship game against Cincinnati. So there's a lot out there for Auburn. I think they could get some good bowls. We'll just have to see what happens on Sunday. Now let's go into basketball, who played Furman last night in Auburn Arena, and it was quite a test for the Auburn Tigers as the Furman Paladins came in and gave Auburn all they could handle, but the Tigers were able to win in overtime. Delaney, you were there as a fan. What did you see from Auburn?
Well, it was definitely a game that started out a little rusty after over a week of not playing. There was a solid 8 minutes in the first half where Auburn couldn't make any of their shots. And I think that the offense, they really clicked more towards the end, but it definitely took some time for them to get back into the swing of things.
Yeah, and Furman really pushed Auburn, especially late in the first half, as they went on an 8-0 run to take an 8-point lead going into halftime. It was, honestly, I think it was probably Auburn's one of their toughest tests, because obviously they were pushed against South Alabama. In the Legends Classic, they were able to dominate pretty handily. So did you feel like maybe Auburn was feeling was it like the rest that they've had over the week, or were they feeling a little complacent?
I think that going into the game, they probably didn't really expect too much from Furman, as they were a 7-3 team. But I think that it was also just because of the rest and having that week off.
Yeah, and it was mentioned that Auburn did take 4 days off for Thanksgiving, so that can play a big factor coming into a game where you have a lot of rest, and so you tend to make mistakes. And Auburn did have a lot of turnovers, a lot of missed passes, so that can affect Auburn. But now they have a week off again, and they go into the Mike Slive Invitational next Saturday, which will be another big test, is against St. Louis, another team just like Furman that we might see in the March Madness come the end of the basketball season. What do you think Auburn's going to have to do going into this non-conference? You've got St. Louis, you've got NC State, a lot of tough tests. What does Auburn have to do to just establish this rhythm again that they had in these last couple games and up until Furman?
I think that those players that have stood out and been dominant so far are going to continue to have to play that way and lead the team. Just a couple, Isaac Okoro, who had career-high 18 points last night, along with Austin Wiley, who had 13 points last night, 5 of which came in from overtime to help seal that win. And I think that those are 2 players to watch who are really going to help carry this team and push them to success.
You mentioned Austin Wiley. That's a good point because he is now really healthy for the first time in his career, is really what Bruce Pearl has said. How big is his contribution to this team's success?
It's huge. He got his 3rd straight double-double last night. Earlier this week on Monday, he was named the SEC Basketball Player of the Week. So he's just really strong carrying the team forward, and we expect a lot from him this year.
Yeah, for sure. And he's definitely going to be NBA talent once he really grows in this team. And I think that will be a huge move for Auburn as they come down the stretch and going into SEC play. Well, that's going to do it for us here at Eagle Eye. I'm Andy Hewing, joined by Delaney Barra, and we'll be back next semester as we have more previews for you for sports coming up on the weekend. But for now, thank you for joining us, and War Eagle.
All right, so welcome. Thank you all for coming. So this is QPR. This is Suicide Prevention Training. And so I just want to throw out some ground rules before we get started. This is a safe space. There's usually always 1 or more people who have been affected by suicide in some type of way. So if someone comments or says something, let's just make sure that we're respectful of what somebody says and of someone's experience, because you never know how this may have affected people. And I also, in that same vein, want you all to feel very comfortable to speak and to talk. And to ask questions. There are no stupid questions. So if you have questions, please ask questions. This is a subject that people don't ask questions about, right? And something that we need to talk about and remove that stigma from this. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask any questions that you guys have. So to get started, we're going to have you guys take a little pre-survey for us. So with your phone, you can use your camera if you have an iPhone. If you have an Android phone, you probably will need to use Snapchat or to use a QR code reader. And as you do that, it should pull up a quick survey that I'm going to have you guys fill out for me, and we'll also do a post survey. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that. everybody's almost finished. All right. So let me introduce myself. My name is Stephanie Morauer. I'm an academic advisor on campus in the Harvard College of Business. And so I've been doing these trainings for about 3 or 4 years now. Suicide prevention is something that I'm really passionate about because it is a really big problem that we have. And so hopefully you all will learn something today that will really help you to save a life. So what are we going to learn today? So basically we're going to understand how suicide impacts our society. You're going to get some tips on some warning signs and things that you need to kind of look out for so that you can recognize if someone has a need. Some just increased knowledge of some intervention skills that you can use if you see these warning signs. And then referral resources, right? Because we are not counselors, right? This is not supposed to be a training where you're a counselor and you give out medicine and all of that, right? So this is just to help you with basic warning signs, basic interventions, and then you can be able to refer that someone for further help. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to start with a video. This video is from NC State. This video, it has 3 students in it who attempted suicide and survived. And so it's kind of their stories. It is an intense video, so I will throw that out there. And it is okay to have feelings and have reactions to this video. I will ask what your feelings and your reactions are after it's over. Sorry, just trying to make it bigger.
I didn't want there to be a note. I didn't want there to be anything. I just wanted to be done. There was nothing to say in a note. I didn't hate anything that anybody had done. I didn't blame anybody. There was just do it or don't do it.
I seemed fine, but I wasn't every single day. I mean, I felt like I was numb and like a little bit like that empty feeling on the inside. But people don't see that. They're not really looking for it. They want the drama that comes with it, but they don't want the actual problems to fix.
I felt broken, hopeless, like I was never going to escape the pain of all of the things that happened. It was hard to feel like you're not in control of your mind, that you're fighting this battle and trying to develop who you are as a person when you can't even be bothered to get out of bed in the morning to eat a meal. It's hard.
When I didn't have anything to do, it would just be me not going to school. By the time I left the house, opening my mouth for the first time, my jaw was cracking and clicking because I hadn't actually said anything over the course of a week. I didn't feel like anybody was even there to experience that or would understand it.
At the time, I had a lot of struggles with family, with my mom. I was pushing a lot of my good friends away, and I wasn't paying attention to who I was talking to, what I was doing to myself.
I had been dealing with bipolar disorder, undiagnosed at that point, and just feeling remarkably alone.
I was sexually assaulted in my undergraduate study. So that combined with anxiety and my severe clinical depression that I've been battling for I don't even know how many years, everything just kind of came to a head.
I found myself drowning, like completely drowning.
Everything from that week is just, the roar is like this roar of wind. It's this roar of complete chaos.
It would just be easier just to sleep and not wake up, not get in another fight with my mom and disappoint her, not give another reason to tell myself, oh, your dad doesn't call because of this.
I just started having this panic attack after a fight with the girl that I was dating, which turned into me sitting in the shower with a knife for like 4 hours.
I was here on campus. I was in the bathrooms having a complete meltdown, and I grabbed my X-Acto knife out of my backpack and I put it to my wrist. And
One of my friends actually bought the stuff for me that I OD'd on and was actually pushing that it might actually be a good thing. I was rushed to the hospital and I was pretty dead. I was pretty gone. If it had been 5 minutes later or whatnot, I probably wouldn't be here.
just as I was about to do it, someone knocked on the stall door and asked me, "Are you all right?" I paused for a second, knife in my hand, and no, I'm not fine. And that was the first time I really allowed myself to admit that I was not keeping it together.
The next step was, turn off the shower, and I literally ran, jumped as far into the covers as I could, because I was freezing cold at this point. More than anything else, I was just thinking about my parents and my brother, and actually my dog, and how much I would miss them, and that I just didn't want to be without them. And I didn't want to do that to them.
I just wanted someone to realize that I needed help, that I needed someone to talk to.
The fear of disappointing the people that you hold in high regard is really just a huge weight that hangs over your head all the time, and you're worried that if you tell them how you feel, that they'll see all of this ugliness, this darkness, and this weakness inside you.
It's not easy just to come up to someone and say, I want to kill myself, I want to die, I'm done with everything.
Actually understanding that somebody wants to kill themselves is a completely different, alien thing for a lot of people. It's terrifying. It doesn't make sense.
I sat down for a couple months with a therapist and my mom, and I started, saying things the way that I needed to say it.
And it was the first time that I had been able to separate myself from the things that were afflicting me.
Everything involves change of lifestyle, which is hard, and it's hard to adapt to, but it's necessary.
My mom, what would happen to her? And my friends who have put time and effort into our friendships, what it would do to them, it just rips people apart and it doesn't help the community.
You're not broken. You might be cracked and scuffed and scarred, but you are never broken.
Your experience, as terrible as it is, has been gone through. You can work through it, and that there are other people who will help you work through it.
The point is to, live, to create happy memories, is to affect people around you.
The things that you hate about yourself now will someday be things that you overcome and that make you a stronger person.
Those who love me give me hope.
Don't give up. Fight. Fight as hard as you can.
I am strong. I'm worth it. I think everyone else around me is worth it too, but you have to start with yourself.
By not addressing the issues that men and women are facing, we're essentially putting them in a different room and not offering them the support and the help that we should be. So that's why we need to talk about this.
All right. So So thoughts, reactions. It's okay to talk. It's okay to share. What are y'all thinking about that? What are you feeling about that? Open space, safe space. Any thoughts? Anybody? Yeah.
I think it's pretty eye-opening to see from someone's perspective who's felt that way before.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty like unique because I haven't come in contact with that, so it's cool to see it. Not cool, but like interesting to see it.
Yeah, for sure. Is you probably, I mean, I know I've always wondered, like, how do you get to that point? Like, what, you know, like what's going on? And so that is a very interesting perspective because you usually hear about it or you just know someone and they're gone and you're just like, oh my gosh, like what happened? And so that really makes it real, right? Yeah.
One person in particular that stood out to me, I believe her name was Bracia.
Mm-hmm.
And when she said that she had been sexually assaulted and she was dealing with clinical depression, severe clinical depression on top of being a student, like it makes me think about like walking on the concourse every single day and like walking past like all different people that we might not ever see again or just not come in contact with. And like I might be having a rough day if I have like a test or something, but just knowing that people like her that have dealt with things way more severe than that and are dealing with it by themselves it's just really sad.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. Any other thoughts, reactions? Okay.
It was,
Yeah,
sorry,
no.
I think it was different to see how they, with the exception of Claudia, like had their moment where they realized like this is not okay. Like
Right.
he was in the shower and just kind of decided like what was worthwhile to hold on to, and then she kind of had like a self-realization moment when somebody asked like, "Are you okay?"
Right.
And then like they kind of had their own turnaround.
Right. Yeah, for him, he, you know, thought about people that he loved and his dog. And then for her, you know, what if that person had knocked on the door? You know, like what if they hadn't showed up? And all they said was, "Are you all right?" That's all they said. And that stopped her, right? Because that made her think, okay, well, clearly I'm not all right because I have a knife right now. So just that was an intervention. Just that person knocking on the door and saying, "Are you all right?" was an intervention and stopped her. And so that's what we're going to learn today, is to see those warning signs from people and then how we could just do something simple by just asking one question and having that intervention and hopefully saving somebody's life. So thank you all for sharing your reactions. So next we're going to kind of talk about some facts. So these are all United States facts from 2017. So these are facts of people who have all the suicides that have happened. So there was 47,000 deaths about in the United States in 2017. So these are the newest stats that we have because it takes a while for them to get all the stats from all of the United States. So that's a lot. So that's about one death every 12 minutes by suicide, and Alabama is 24th in states ranking for suicide deaths. So about 788 deaths in Alabama during 2017. Does that number surprise you? 47,000? It's kind of a lot, right? It's a pretty big number. So from homicide was 17,000. From suicide was 47,000. You guys would have thought that suicide would be more than homicide? I know I wouldn't have thought that. And every year, the suicide number, every year we get these numbers, is significantly more than homicide. So suicide is a preventable death, right? Because no one's taking your life, you're taking your own life. So it's definitely something that's preventable. So hopefully the more training everyone has, that will help. So the method in 2017, we've got about 50% by a firearm, 13% poisoning, 27% suffocation, which suffocation could include like hanging, any of those methods. And then other ways, 7.8%. A few years ago, one of my advisees drove to Tumor's Corner and put a gun to his head and shot himself. That's not my only experience with suicide, but that's just one of them. I had only met with him a couple times because he transferred into the College of Business from another major on campus. And so when I met with him, there really wasn't any warning signs because I didn't really know him that well yet. And he didn't really show any warning signs to his parents or to his friends either. And sometimes that's how it is. So we will save as many people as we can save, but there may be some people who just don't show us any signs, and if they decide that they're going to do that, then they're going to do that, and there's not anything we can do about that. But just to make it real for you, you know, we talk about the United States stats and the Alabama stats. It happened at Auburn. It happened at Tumor's Corner not very long ago. So just so that you guys know that this is real and it is happening. I don't know if you guys have heard, there's a report that just came out that said the number in Lee County of suicides has risen in the last year, and that the coroner is actually very concerned by the amount of suicide deaths in Lee County. So it's very real. It's right here where we are. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that a little bit. So for young people in college, so we have about 5,000 young people between the ages of 15 to 24 who die by suicide each year. It is the second leading cause of death among college students. The second. So I think the first is like car accidents, which makes sense, driving too fast, right? Not paying attention. And the second is suicide. Does that surprise you? Well, that's the second leading cause for college students? Yeah, it's pretty scary. But for every single person that actually dies from suicide, there was 25 attempts made. So when someone is successful with completing suicide, they probably tried it many times before it was successful. So 67% of college students first tell a friend that they're considering suicide, and that stats from Active Minds, which is a student organization on campus. So people are telling people are asking for help. And so we have this training so that if you're the person they're asking for help, that you can help them and maybe be that intervention for them, like for Basha in the video. So someone who is left behind, we call a lost survivor. So for the amount of people, so there's over 1 million Americans per year that are lost survivors. So these are all the people that are left behind after someone takes their own life. So I gave you guys a sheet, and on one side it looks like this, and it's called the mini path to suicide. And so let's just kind of try to understand how it gets to this point, like how the people in the video kind of helped us. So you have fundamental risk factors. You have things about yourself, you have things that have happened in your life that you cannot change, right? Your sex, your race, your age, you can't change that. Like you are, how old you are, that's it. I mean, there's nothing that you can do about that. And then there's personal or psychological things that affect you that you can't do anything, like maybe there was some type of an abuse, or maybe there was a loss of a parent, or maybe there were drugs or things that happened to you over the course of your life. Your values, your religious beliefs, all of that shapes who you are. So those are all part of your character and who you are, not necessarily things you can change. Your environment. You're in Auburn, Alabama. So unless you transfer to another school or you decide to go work at another school, this is your environment, and it's probably not going to change for a little while, right? Luckily, you're in a really nice environment, right? Auburn is a nice place. It's a beautiful place. Not all college campuses are in nice, beautiful, geographically beautiful places. So all of those are things that you can't change. Then you have triggers or like final straws, right? So something happens, like an illness or maybe even something like failing a test. I mean, that can be something huge for someone. Maybe failing that test means you don't get into nursing school, and that's been your dream for your whole life, right? That would be something really monumental for someone. Or you have a major loss in your family or something. And so let's say we are, male and we're young and we were abused as a child, and we're at a school in the middle of nowhere, and we don't have a lot of friends, and it snows most of the year, and it's cold, and then on top of all of that, something happens, like we get expelled or we lose a job, and all these things keep happening. That can be the final straw. So you already feel like you've struggled in your life already. You already feel like you're not on par with everyone else. And then all this stuff keeps happening to you. That can be your final straw, right? So that is going to increase the hopelessness that you feel that you can overcome all of these challenges and all of these obstacles, which then gets us to the wall of resistance, which I'm going to skip for just a second, but pretend like that's not there. And then we get over to cause of death, right? Where now we are, we're done, and so we're going to use one of these methods for suicide. So if you turn this over on the back, this is the wall of resistance. So the wall of resistance is right here. That is what's going to stop you. So we're already feeling all this hopelessness from our fundamental risk factors and our proximal risk factors, our final straws. And so we're just so hopeless. How are we going to get through this? Our wall of resistance is what's going to stop us from getting over to the death, okay? So what is the wall of resistance? So the wall of resistance is your, the wall of resistance is your, why is it not going to the next one? Sorry. There we go. Is your support system. So like the guy in the video, he said he remembered his family, right? And he remembered his dog. Those are everybody in his wall. Those people, remembering those people in that moment and his dog and thinking about how much he loves them and how much he would miss them, that is what stopped him. That was his wall of resistance. That stopped him from going over to death, right? Because he immediately jumped out of that tub and got warm. So everybody has a wall. Everybody has something in your wall. Maybe your parents are in your wall. Maybe your spouse is in your wall. Maybe your boyfriend or your girlfriend, your best friend, your dog, your religion, your values. There's lots of things that make up your wall. Who can tell me some things that are in your wall? Things that are important to you, that are at the core of your life, that keep you moving, keep you alive, keep you going every day.
Family.
Your family? Good. What else? Friends? Religion? Other things in your wall that you can think of? Things that keep you grounded when, like, you're having a really, really tough day. What's the first thing you think of, or the first person you think of when you're having a really, really tough day? And you're just like, oh my gosh, I've got to get through this day. This is the worst day ever. What are some things that you guys do or you think about?
Just like physical hobbies.
Yeah.
Like playing golf or something like that.
Yeah, physical hobby. Yeah, exactly. So there's something that you do. There's someone you talk to or someone you reach out to or something you go do and you're like, okay, I'm going to go play golf because, like, that's the only thing that's going to make me happy right now because this is the worst day ever, right? And then you're like, okay, that was good. It's all right. Life is okay. I'll get through this. It was a bad day. Tomorrow will be better, right? So all of those things are in your wall. So when someone gets to the hopelessness part, that's where we come in to try to remind them that you have things in your wall. You have things in your wall. You have people in your wall. You have dreams in your wall. You have ambitions in your wall. And if you're not here, if you die, then you don't get to do those things. You don't get to be here with those people. You don't get to go play golf, right? Because you're not here. So that is what we're doing when we're intervening, is we're reminding people that, yeah, you have a reason to be here. You're valuable. You're worth something. You should be here, and I want you to be here. So that's what the wall of resistance is. Does that make sense to everyone? Does anyone have a question about the many paths or the wall? Okay. So this is the lethal triad, which just basically means if there's an upset person and they are given a firearm or they are giving alcohol or drugs, that it's going to be more likely that they commit suicide, right? So, and I shouldn't say commit, that is not the right word that we should say, that they take their own life. So for example, the lady in the video, her friend gave her the drugs. So she may not have even had access to those drugs, or she may not have even known where to get them from, and her friend gave them to her. So therefore she used them, right? And she almost died. So that's just what that is talking about. And here's my slide where I just use the word I'm not supposed to use. So we should not use commit suicide. We should use die by suicide or take your own life. So just so that you guys know kind of some language that we should use. So this is talking about the Golden Gate Bridge. So the Golden Gate Bridge is very high and very long, and lots of people go there to try to take their own life, because if you fall from that, you're probably not going to survive, more than likely, right? So that's just kind of a guaranteed place that you can go if you're thinking about suicide. And so there were 515 would-be people who would have jumped between 1937 and 1971, but police officers that were like patrolling the area stopped and got out of their car and just talked to the person, and then those people did not jump. So that was just a police officer intervening. Just like that police officer, we can do the same thing. The police officer is not a clinical mental health professional, right? They're just a police officer. They just got out and they talked to the person. We can do the same thing. They just did a simple intervention. And so a clinical psychologist said of these people that they were having an acute temporary crisis. They passed through it, and coming out on the other side, they got on with their lives. So a lot of times when we have this final straw, this crisis, we're not thinking clearly, right? We're not thinking straight. We're just thinking, this is so painful. This is so terrible. There's no way out of this. My only solution is just to die. But if they have someone there to say, hey, this is just what's going on in your life right now. This is just a storm. This is just a challenge you're going through right now. You will get through this. I will help you get through this. Then they can come out on the other side of it, right? But in that moment, if there's not someone there to intervene, or they don't remember their wall, then they're going to be gone. And so this was people, just pictures of people talking to people. And basically what they were saying is that they interviewed these people who actually ended up not jumping. And they were like, what's going on? Why are you wanting to jump? And the people were basically saying, I didn't want to actually die. I just wanted the pain to end. Like, I just was in so much pain, I could not see any other way out. I didn't actually want to die. So for people who are dealing with this, they're not actually wanting to die. They just don't see any other solution to get rid of their pain or to work through their crisis situation. All right, so like I said earlier, QPR is, we're not clinical psychologists, we're not counselors, we're not mental health professionals. This training is not to make you into any of those things. Obviously, people go to school and go to years and years of training for all of that. This is just to help you be that police officer, to be that girl that knocked on the bathroom door and said, are you okay? Just a simple intervention to help somebody. So this video is going to just tell you all a little bit more about QPR, if it will load. You know you want to.
Research shows that the odds of surviving a heart attack in a public place are 10 times greater in regions where thousands of ordinary citizens are trained in CPR. It's called bystander rescue. When someone shows signs of experiencing cardiac arrest, the response of nearby friends, family, or coworkers is critical. The effective use of CPR doubles or triples one's chances of surviving a heart attack. Like CPR, QPR is an emergency intervention for someone experiencing a life-threatening crisis. QPR is easy to learn and easy to remember, but it takes courage to overcome our fears about reaching out to help someone who may be considering suicide. Research also shows that where QPR is widely taught, suicide attempts and deaths decrease. Just like CPR, QPR requires quick, bold, and informed action. Because suicide, like heart attacks, remains a rare event, we must train hundreds to save one, thousands to save hundreds, and millions to save thousands. There is an old Welsh saying, "No great misery goes unspoken." When we have a toothache, we tell people. We don't hide our pain. But because of the stigma and taboo around the word suicide, many people considering suicide don't speak plainly about their suffering. They fear our rejection. They fear that if they say something, we will ridicule them or make fun of them. As a result, people thinking about suicide often use indirect language. They hint at what they're thinking of doing. They send us coded messages, and they suffer in silence. Called suicide warning signs, QPR training teaches you how to recognize these warning signs, quickly decode them, and then question the person in an informed and compassionate manner to learn if they are considering suicide. Just as talking about physical pain helps diminish it, talking about suicide with someone willing and able to listen reduces psychological pain almost immediately. Trained QPR gatekeepers are merchants of hope, and hope helps prevent suicide. Millions of people have now been trained in QPR. Rigorous independent research studies support QPR as effective, and thousands of personal stories assure us that QPR is saving lives. When you use QPR, not everyone will be suicidal. Some people are simply stressed to the breaking point, but they still need help. Help you can give. Please note that you cannot put the idea of suicide into someone's mind. People are either thinking about suicide or they're not. The fear of putting the idea of suicide into someone's head is a myth that keeps us from acting when we should do just the opposite. QPR is a universal intervention for people in pain, whether they're thinking about suicide or not. While it takes a special courage to overcome our fears, we will teach you how to ask about suicide and to offer hope through listening. Listening is the power tool that restores hope in the hopeless. We know you can do this, and we will show you how. Preventing suicide. It's what people do.
So that's just a little bit about it so that you guys kind of understand a little bit. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the myths and the facts, but basically, in a nutshell, people feel like, oh, if I talk about it with somebody, I'm going to be putting it in their head, or there's no way I could stop somebody. If they want to do it, they want to do it. And sometimes that's true, but that's not always true. So just know that all those things that you guys are kind of thinking about that you may have heard or you might think, it's not really true. You actually can do an intervention and help somebody. All right, so let's get to the warning signs so that you guys can see what we're talking about. So some warning signs. There are direct verbal cues where someone actually says, I want to kill myself. I want to take my own life. That would be a direct verbal cue, somebody telling you that. So that is a clear warning sign. If someone is telling you that, probably need to use QPR, right? If they're actually saying that they want to kill themselves or they want to be dead. There's also indirect cues like I want to go to sleep and never wake up, or I'm getting my affairs in order, or I'm not going to be around much longer, or anything like that. So these would all be indirect things. I'm just tired of life. I'm just tired of this. I can't do this anymore. I can't take this anymore. Those would be indirect verbal warning signs. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to stop me. So behavioral things would be someone's behavior changes, right? So, a sudden interest or disinterest in things that they've been interested in before, severe depression, just any behavior that just changes. And so you know somebody well, and you know how they generally are, and then they completely flip, and they're doing something different, and they're behaving differently, then that is going to be a clear warning sign. Other things, so if you're ever in doubt, don't wait to ask someone a question, and I'm going to go through that in a minute. What do you guys think when I say ask the question? So we've seen some of these warning signs, like maybe, their behavior changed, or maybe even their hygiene changed. Like maybe they always look amazing, they always look so good, and then they're coming to class and they haven't showered in a few weeks. That's a warning sign. Something is probably going on with them. So what do you guys think the question is? That's the cue of QPR. What do you guys think the question is? Close. But yes, you could definitely start with that. But what do you guys think the question is?
Are you thinking about suicide?
Yeah. Are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about taking your own life? Do you want to die? Are you going to hurt yourself? Yeah, it's actually asking them if they want to take their own life. That is the question. So you could definitely start with, are you okay, right? Because it might be awkward to be like, hi, do you want to kill yourself, right? Especially if I don't know you and I just have noticed things about you, that might be a little awkward. Now, for best friends, that might not be awkward, right? I might be able to be like, are you serious? What is going on with you? Are you going to kill yourself? And that might be okay. That might be how we talk to each other. So gauge your relationship, right, with the person that you're talking to, because it might be a stranger. But yes, that is the question. So you can work up to that question, but you definitely need to ask that question if you're seeing any of these warning signs. That's the cue of QPR. So direct approach. When people are as upset as you seem to be, they sometimes wish they were dead. I'm wondering if you're feeling that way too. So that would be a way to ask, or are you thinking about killing yourself? So these are direct approaches to asking the question. Less direct, have you been unhappy lately? What's going on? Are you thinking that you might want to end your life? So you can kind of work up to it if you feel like you need to work up to it. Ways to not ask. You're not suicidal, are you? Why is this a bad way to ask? Why should I not say it like, yeah?
Because didn't they say in that video that you can't instill the thought of suicide in someone? So
True.
If you're asking them that, I mean, I know that was okay, that was not.
Yeah.
But you also, I don't know, just with them instilling something's wrong when maybe it isn't.
Right.
But you don't want them to give off the illusion that it actually is.
Yeah, that is part of it. The other part of it is you don't want to come off as judgmental, right? So this kind of sounds like I'm judging you. You're not suicidal, are you? What's wrong with you? Why are you suicidal? So we don't want to come off as we're judging them, or that something's wrong with them for thinking this or for feeling this way, right? Because there's nothing wrong with them. And then the P in QPR is going to be to persuade them to live. How can we persuade them to live? So we ask the question, and they're like, yes, I am thinking about taking my own life. How do we now persuade them to live and to stay here?
We talk to them about the things on the wall that you're talking about.
Exactly. This is when we show them their wall. So we asked them the question. They said, yep, I sure am. I'm thinking about it. Okay, well, who would be left behind if you did this? What would you miss if you did this? What are your goals? What are your dreams? You wouldn't be able to do any of that if you weren't here. So this is when we show them their wall. We talk to them about their wall. We're offering them hope to stay here, to stay alive. So that is the persuade. And refer. So that's still persuade, sorry. Refer. So like I said before, and I've said this whole time, we're not clinical mental health professionals. And so we can only take it so far. So we show them their wall, we give them a little hope back, and we say, okay, you probably need to talk to someone about this. It seems like you're really going through a lot if you're feeling this way. So let me walk you to student counseling services. Or if it's your best friend, let's talk to your mom, or let's talk to your minister, or someone who they can talk to who can take it further than you can. And you can check on them, right? You can call them the next day and be like, hey, how's it going? How's your days going today? Were you able to talk to somebody? You know, just to let them know that you care and that you want them to be here, right? If there's nobody else, you want them to be here. You want them to stay alive, right? So you can keep in contact with them. You can keep offering that hope to them, and then making sure that they talk to someone who can really help them work through whatever it is that they're going through, so they can come out on the other side alive. That's what we want, right? So there's also helpful phone numbers, of course. If it's an emergency, always call 911. Don't try to QPR someone, okay? If they're bleeding, they've already cut themselves, okay, that's not the time to be like, okay, so are you thinking about killing yourself? Okay, let's not do that, right? Because this is an emergency situation now, so we're just gonna need to call 911. But things that you can refer them to, like I said a minute ago, student counseling services. There is a suicide prevention hotline. It is 24 hours a day. That is the phone number. The numbers, all these numbers are also in the booklets that you guys got when you signed in. If you didn't get one, we'll make sure you get one. So these are just places that you guys can refer them. Things you can say, I want you to live. I'm on your side. You're going to get through this. Like I mentioned, you can get other people involved, like brothers, sisters, pastors, rabbis, physicians, family members, if you know these other people, to help get involved. And remember that since almost every effort to try to help someone with this comes with relief and a positive response, you should always try to help. You should always try to intervene. So QPR, question, ask them the question, are you thinking about taking your life? Persuade them to stay alive by showing them their wall and providing them with that hope, letting them know that you want them to be here, you want them to stay alive, and then referring them to get more help that is kind of beyond your scope to give to them. And then checking up on them and making sure that they're okay and that they are getting the help that they need. Any questions about the training? And then I'm just going to tell you guys a few other things, and we're going to do our post survey. Any questions? Okay, so there is a new committee on campus called the Sound Mind Committee, which is focusing on mental health. And they're going to have a self-care fair that's going to be on the concourse on October 15th and 16th. So spread the word about that, tell other people. Self-care is important, right? Because you guys are dealing with a lot of stuff, tests and teaching and your work and all the stuff that you have to deal with. So sometimes we don't take care of ourselves, right? Because we're just running around trying to get everything done. And so that's important to our mental health. So they're going to have that self-care fair on the concourse October 15th and 16th. So I encourage you guys to go and take your friends, take other staff members with you. So I wanted to mention that. And then tomorrow, Health, Wellness, and Promotion Services is going to be hosting the Auburn Family Table and Village Dining at 6 p.m. This is going to be where everybody comes to eat. You put your phones in the middle of the table, you unplug for a minute so that you can actually talk to people, right? We're always in our phones, we're on social media, and we don't actually sit down and have a conversation face to face anymore. So this is going to be a place where people can come together, faculty, students, staff, everybody, and have a conversation. So that's tomorrow at 6 p.m. in Village Dining. And this is your post survey. So if you guys could take out your phones one more time and complete the post survey. Thank you for coming to the training today. If you didn't get a booklet, let me know and I'll make sure you get one.
Good evening and welcome to Eagle Eye News at 6. I'm Taylor McBride.
And I'm Abigail Griffin.
After a slow start for the Tigers this weekend, Auburn football managed to defeat Ole Miss 20-14, making it their fourth straight win against the Rebels.
The Auburn Tigers hosted the Ole Miss Rebels for their first game back in Jordan-Hare since September. After losing to LSU last week in Death Valley, the Tigers looked to bounce back and make an example of Ole Miss. The Tigers started the game slow. With 2 missed field goals from Anders Carlson in the first quarter, both teams entered the second quarter scoreless. With 6 minutes left in the second quarter, Auburn put their first points on the board with a 20-yard field goal by Carlson. A 1-yard touchdown run by DJ Williams put Auburn up 10 points. With less than a minute left in the half, J.R. Plumlee from Ole Miss scored a touchdown, leaving Auburn with only a 3-point lead entering the half. In the third quarter, a 1-yard run from Bo Nix added another 7 points to the Tigers' score, putting them up 17-7. With less than 5 minutes in the third quarter, a 38-yard field goal from Carlson gave Auburn what seemed like a comfortable 20-7 lead. The Tigers maintained their 13-point lead until there was less than 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But a 1-yard run from Snoop Connor of Ole Miss brought the Rebels' score up to 14 and left them down by only 6 points with minutes left on the clock. With a little more than a minute left in the game, Ole Miss started a drive that led them all the way to Auburn's 35-yard line. On a 4th and 3, the Rebels decided to go for it, but Plumlee's pass was intercepted by Auburn's Christian Tutt, who returned the ball for 57 yards, all the way to Ole Miss's 13-yard line. With a final score of 20-14, the Auburn Tigers defeated the Ole Miss Rebels. Despite the somewhat low-scoring game, the Tigers' offense combined for a total of 507 yards, 340 of which came from quarterback Bo Nix. With the win, Auburn's record moves to 7-2. The Tigers have a bye week November 9th, but will return home to host the Georgia Bulldogs November 16th. From Jordan-Hare Stadium, this is Delaney Barrow, Eagle Eye TV.
It's not at the top. The game was scoreless until the last 6 minutes of the second quarter with Anders Carlson 20-yard field goal. Later in the quarter, DJ Williams scored a 1-yard touchdown to put the Tigers up 10-0.
With only 44 seconds to go, Ole Miss scored a touchdown, leaving it 10-7 at half. Defensively, the Tigers held Ole Miss to 2 touchdowns. Derek Brown was able to step up even more and play consistently with 7 tackles, with Marlon Davidson out with a lower back injury.
Auburn has off next Saturday, November 9th, because of a bye week. Coach Gus Malzahn spoke on how the team needs a break to take on the number 8 Georgia Bulldogs. We need that break. We're a little banged up. We need to heal up. The off week couldn't come at a better time, said Malzahn.
Number 11, Auburn moves to 7-2 and will play in Jordan-Hare Stadium on November 16th against Georgia.
Auburn Police Division is still seeking public assistance to determine the location of Anaya Blankard, a 19-year-old missing from Auburn. Blankard has been missing since October 24th.
Police are now considering foul play to be involved in the disappearance. The Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences examined Blanchard's car and has determined that she was harmed and considered to be a victim of foul play.
Governor Kay Ivey announced on October 30th that a $5,000 reward for information is being offered, with an additional $25,000 reward being offered by UFC President Dana White, as well as another $5,000 from an anonymous source for information that leads to an arrest.
The investigation is still ongoing, and anyone with any information is asked to call the Auburn Police Division Detective Section at 334-501-3140, the anonymous tip line at 334-246-1391, or the 24-hour non-emergency number at 334-501-3100. It has been 9 months since Auburn basketball has appeared in the Final Four, and they have returned to the court and defeated Etchard in the exhibition game 97-53.
The Tigers were able to play 12 new players to give fans a chance to see what they could do with losing much of the talent from last season's team.
The Auburn's men's basketball program tips off tonight at their exhibition games against Etchard College. After winning the SEC tournament last season, the new team has big shoes to fill. The Tigers returned to the Allman Arena this evening. Students quickly filled up the jungle in anticipation of the game. The Tigers led an explosive offense as Javon McCormick finished off a lob from Samir Dowdy within the first few minutes of the game. Dowdy was able to show his skills as both a point guard and forward. Wiley hasn't lost a beat since last season and continues to lead his team to a Tiger victory. The defense had 25 points off of turnovers, proving to be a force to reckon with. The Tigers will go on to cruise 97-53 as they look ahead to the upcoming season. The Auburn Tigers will return this Tuesday against Georgia Southern. They'll play at 8 p.m. I'm Larkin Carden reporting for Eagle Eye News TV.
Siobhan McCormick has become the starting point guard for Auburn after sharing time with Jared Harper last season. McCormick scored 20 points with 5 assists and 2 steals. He is looking more comfortable as the point guard and is continuing to become a leader for this Auburn team.
He's been really good. He's taking control and leading by example. I asked a lot of him to run that position, and he's growing up before your eyes, said Coach Bruce Pearl. Samir Dowdy made a strong return with 14 points and 4 assists and 1 steal. Dowdy played a forward position but also swapped with McCormick at point guard.
Dowdy has had to take on a bigger role this year, but Auburn's biggest boost this year may be their defense, with the size and depth of players Austin Wiley and Afranian McLemore. Auburn will face Georgia Southern on Tuesday night to open up the regular season.
Tip-off is at 8 p.m. and can also be seen on SEC Network. Candidate registration is now available to represent the colleges or schools in the SGA Senate or on Schools Council. The candidates may also register to run as at-large senators or the major ticket offices of SGA President, Vice President, or Treasurer.
Senators are set to represent the student body on issues pertaining to academics, campus life, inclusion and diversity, finances, athletics, and more. Schools Council representatives sponsor colleges or school-wide activities and serve in advisory capacity to the organization or the college or school.
Candidates may register at aub.ie/SGA candidate or visit aub.ie/elections for more information. Registration closes November 20th at 5 p.m. Auburn University is continuing its commitment to encouraging conversations around intellectual diversity, inclusion, and free speech in higher education with the Critical Conversation Speaker Series.
The next speaker series will feature first-generation college student, Harvard University assistant professor, and author Anthony Jack on November 7th.
We are thrilled to welcome Dr. Jack on campus to discuss his research on the experiences of low-income students within the academy, said Taffy Benson-Clayton, Associate Provost and Vice President for Inclusion and Diversity. The continuation of the Critical Conversation Speaker Series explores how our shared values of free speech and civil discourse are being both critically discussed and thoughtfully applied at Auburn University.
Jack is a junior fellow at the Harvard Society of Fellows. His research has been cited by the New York Times, the Boston Globe, the Atlantic, the Huffington Post, and more. His book, The Privileged Poor, was named the 2018 recipient of the Thomas J. Wilson Memorial Prize by Harvard University Press. His talk at Auburn will be held at 5 p.m. at 2550 Mell Classroom Building at RBD Library. After the break, take a look at how the International Student Organization is hosting their annual Peace Dinner.
You're watching Eagle Eye TV, Auburn's news leader. The International Student Organization will host its annual Peace Dinner event on November 6th at 6 p.m. in the Student Activities Center. All students are encouraged to attend to learn more about a variety of cultures and try cuisine from several regions across the globe, including traditional appetizers, entrees, sides, and desserts. The event is free to all Auburn students with a mobile event pass. Learn more about the International Student Organization at aub.ie/ISO.
The University Program Council will host War Dam Coffee Jam on November 7th on Sanford Lawn from 6 to 9 p.m. The event will transform Sanford Lawn into a coffee house and features live musical performances from Drakeford and Decoy Snail. Free donuts, coffee, and popcorn will be provided.
During the week of November 11th through 15th, SGA and the Beat Bama Food Drive will be hosting a Donate a Dollar campaign at on-campus C-stores. Students, faculty, and staff are encouraged to donate $1 with any purchase to support this initiative. Participants can use Tiger Card or other forms of accepted payment to add $1 to their purchase. All monies donated will benefit Feed the Family Fund and count towards the Beat Bama Food Drive.
Feed the Family Fund is a meal assistance program that assists students experiencing chronic food insecurity. The need-based program provides funding and meal swipes to students struggling with disrupted eating patterns, reduced food intake, and reduced food quality due to a lack of financial resources. Every $1 donated counts as 2 pounds of food for the Beat Bama Food Drive.
To learn more, go to aub.ie/feedthisfamily. This opportunity was made possible by SGA, Beat Bama Food Drive, Campus Dining, and Auburn Cares.
Auburn University students participated in an Adobe Creative Jam, a graphic design competition sponsored by Adobe as part of the Auburn Adobe Strategic Initiative. Student teams were essentially given the theme Community Impact, attended a 1-hour boot camp on Adobe XD, and were given 2 hours to create an app prototype using Adobe XD.
Prior to the competition time, Amy Strickland of the Office of Sustainability spoke to students about community issues of sustainability and framed the task using the Sustainability Compass. Students were encouraged to consider areas of need when designing their apps. When the development timeframe was up, students' teams presented their prototypes to judges that were made up of professional app developers from the industry. The work from 3 students' teams were honored.
Auburn students have ready access to Adobe creative applications such as Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, and XD. To experience this and more, visit adobe.auburn.edu to enhance classroom assignments, present research, and design and publish both print and online content. Auburn University's College of Human Sciences will recognize St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and noted orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews at the 26th Annual International Quality of Life Awards in New York City on December 9th.
For the past 25 years, the College of Human Sciences have sponsored the International Quality of Life Awards, or IQLA, honoring people, partnerships, and organizations that have made significant and lasting contributions to individual, family, and community well-being locally and around the world.
All IQLA laureates and lifetime achievement honorees, regardless of background, have distinguished themselves professionally and demonstrated a strong commitment to empowerment through public policy, education, the arts, and other initiatives to enhance quality of life, said Susan Humbard, Dean of the College of Human Sciences. The 2019 honorees certainly meet and exceed these qualities, and we look forward to making the official presentation in New York this December.
One of the primary goals of IQLA is to inspire students by exposing them to industry leaders who prioritize giving back through their work. The select group of Auburn University students participating in the IQLA New York Study Tour will join the ceremony as IQLA ambassadors. This year's Black Tie event will be held at the historic Lot New York Palace. For ticket and table information, visit www.iqla@auburn.edu or email chscomm@auburn.edu. It's the infamous duo here to steal the spotlight of Pets of the Week. Marco and Polo have been waiting for a while to find their forever home. They are just over 6 months and love napping in the sun and cuddling into your shoulder.
These 2 boys are the best adventure buddies and are always up for a long nap when the adventure is over. They are both neutered, microchipped, vaccinated, and are FIV and FLV negative. Come meet these little rascal brothers this week.
After the break, a look at how more than 100 vegetable products have been recalled for listeria concerns.
You're watching Eagle Eye TV, Auburn's news leader. More than 100 vegetable products have been recalled for listeria concerns. The packages have a best if enjoyed by date of October 11th to November 16th and were sold under a few commonly known brand names like Cisco, Trader Joe's, and Signature Farms.
The infection could cause fevers, headaches, diarrhea, and can also be fatal for some, according to the CDC. That's
crazy.
That's all we have for you tonight. Be sure to tune in with us each Monday and check our website, eagleeyeauburn.com, for all the latest Auburn headlines. I'm Taylor McBride.
And I'm Abigail Griffin. Thanks for joining us, and War Eagle.
My mother was always very...
The topic is Chinese, mainland, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and the United States. My name is Adiola Fayemi, and I oversee the International Cultural Center in the Office of International Programs. This lunch seminar is one of the signature programs hosted by the International Cultural Center. We create every time an informal lunch forum to educate and sensitize our campus community about important international affairs, intercultural issues such as politics in Brazil, uprising in the Sudan, comparative cultural diversity in Canada, or the commemoration of the International Women's Day with a representative of a consulate here in Auburn with us. We engage our faculty, students, and staff, and the wider urban community in civil discourse about international issues to continue the process of internationalizing the campus and preparing our students to be culturally competent global citizens in an increasingly competitive world. I am sure that you will agree with me that today's topic is very timely current news, and most of us need to be able to truly understand the history and dynamics so that after this lecture, we can continue an objective campus-wide conversation, not just about this topic, but about other important international issues to further our understanding of the world and continue the process of internationalizing at home within our campus. Now it's time for me to introduce our distinguished moderator for this session. But before I do that, I would like to address some housekeeping issues. First, you should have sign-in sheets on your table. It's the blue one. Please make sure that you sign before you leave so we can keep in touch with you after this. Secondly, you should have sign-up sheets. Those are the deep yellow sheets on the table. Today is the first day of the conversation, but it will not be the last. We plan to continue the conversation. Please sign up to continue the conversation after the talk today. We will establish small dialogue groups for this purpose within the next few days. I will encourage you to sign up and make new connections, share important insights, and make a difference in the world. Thirdly, there should be Q&A cards or post-it little notes. I think they're yellow. In order to make the Q&A session go very smoothly after the talk and to accommodate all the questions, please write your questions and put it to the side near you. Our team members will come around to pick them up and hand them to the moderator for the question and answer session. We hope to be able to take additional questions at the end of this session. Also, our speaker will stay around for a while if you have additional questions. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this session. Our moderator is Dr. Maurice L. Ben, who received his PhD from the University of Washington and joined Auburn University History Faculty in 1998. Dr. Bien's work has been extensively published, including one that actually piqued my interest, titled The Making of the State Enterprise System in Modern China, The Dynamics of Institutional Change, actually published by Harvard University Press. I'm going to read that after. Dr. Bien's research focuses on enduring questions of the Chinese Revolution of 1949. His current project creates a synthesis of the two opposing views surrounding the Chinese Revolution. He is the past president of the Historical Society for 20th Century China and a member of the editorial board of the Chinese Historical Review. Please join me in welcoming a distinguished faculty member, proudly one of ours, Dr. Maurice Bien.
Thank you, Dr. Fiammi, for that wonderful introduction. Before I take the opportunity to introduce our distinguished guest speaker, I would like just to reinforce what Dr. Fiammi just mentioned, and that is to say that one of our goals at Auburn is to make our students informed and hopefully engaged citizens of the United States and the world. And I think the topic we have today is a wonderful fit to that important mission of the university. Now, it is my great honor to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Feiling Wang. Dr. Feiling Wang received his PhD from the University of Pennsylvania. He's a professor at the Samnan School of Communication Affairs, Samnan School of International Affairs at George Tech or George Institute of Technology. His research interests are comparative and international political economy, U.S.-East Asian relations, and East Asia and China studies. I'd like to point out the fact that Dr. Wang is a leading international scholar of international relations, international political economy, especially Chinese political economy. He has published a total of 7 books, including 2 edited volumes. One of his single-authored books is entitled Organization Through Division and Exclusion, China's hukou system. Hukou means household registration, so the household registration system, which was published by Stanford University Press in 2005. It's a groundbreaking study. It has become a classic so far as this extremely important and unique Chinese system of household registration system is concerned. And more recently, he published another important book entitled The Chinese Order, Centralia, World Empire, and the Nature of Chinese Power by SUNY Press. That was published in 2017. And the book has been translated into Chinese, both in its simplified, there are 2 different, written systems of Chinese. One is called, 繁体字 or complicated. One is 简体字 or simplicated or simple characteristic. I can't really have a good description of it. But anyway, it has been translated into Chinese and has been cited so many times and has become a required reading, not just in classrooms, but in some other important contexts. Dr. Wang has also published dozens of book chapters and journal articles in 4 different languages. He taught at the U.S. Military Academy, West Point, and held visiting positions in institutions like European University Institute, Sciences Po in France, National University of Singapore, National Taiwan University, Renmin University of China, and Anhui Normal University in China, University of Tokyo in Japan, U.S. Air Force Academy, and Sun Quyen, I can't say this Korean word, Sun Quyen Kwan University and Yonsei University in Korea. Dr. Wang has also appeared in many national and international news media such as Al Jazeera, AP, BBC, CNN, Radio China International, the Financial Times, the New York Times, the Voice of America, South China Morning Post, the Wall Street Journal, and the Xinhua News Agency. He has had numerous research grants, including a Minerva Chair Grant, a Fulbright Senior Scholar Grant, and a Hitachi Fellowship. And he's also a member of the prestigious institution called Council of Foreign Relations, an organization that includes former U.S. presidents and secretaries of state and so on. Well, without further ado, I shall now turn the podium to Dr. Wang.
All right. Thank you, Morris, for a very kind introduction. I want to thank Dr. Fayami. I want to thank Wei. And I want to thank this wonderful institution for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here. This is an institution I've heard for many, many years, but I have never had a chance to visit. Now I see it's a great place, and the people are wonderful here. Everybody I met so far is wonderful. So I understand that my assignment is to share with you in the next 5 hours, I'm just kidding, about my understanding of Chinese mainland, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and the United States. So I will, actually I've already prepared quite a few slides, but before I get started, I want to make a disclaimer. I was born in southern China and have spent quite a few years in southern USA, so I'm really, really a real southerner. So if my thick southern accent got in the way, you couldn't understand me, I will try to put back my Yankee accent, right? Which I picked up since I spent quite a few years in the north, in the Yankee territory. But I'll be more than happy, of course, to talk in Mandarin as well, in the standard Chinese pronunciation. So kidding aside, but if you have any questions, if I lost you guys in the middle of the way, raise your hand. I'll be happy to sing and dance for you guys to get the point across. Anyway, I prepared a few slides, but we'll see how much we can cover. And I really, really want to hear from you. So I will try to leave some time at the end to do a Q&A. And as Dr. Fayami mentioned, I'll be more than happy to stay behind for a little while if you have questions after the program, right? And by the way, I think this is a wonderful kind of design to have this kind of opportunity to sort of have faculty and students sit together to talk about issues of the day and to get ourselves familiarized with what's going on in the world. This is wonderful. This is something that wonderful education institutions is all about, right? So I'm really, really happy to be a small part of that. So hopefully I will not let you down too much today. All right, so this is my outline of my talk today. I want briefly to mention a few what I consider basic facts regarding US and China to you. I would love to use this as a time to quiz our students. How much do you know about US and China, right? We'll see. And then I will be happy to talk about a little bit Taiwan, the different interpretation of Taiwan, and also the cross-strait relationship between Taiwan and Chinese mainland. And then, of course, Hong Kong, which is very much in the news lately, right? Of course, this is not going to be a news analysis, but just a little way to inform, hopefully, the audience here about what's going on in Hong Kong and what does it mean. And finally, I'll be more than happy to talk about something I'm currently working on, the Sino-American relations. What is transpiring over the Pacific, so to speak, between two great nations, right? Right now and in the years ahead. So we'll see how much we can cover, right? First, China, the name. As the very wise man Confucius said over 2,000 years ago, if you don't have a good name, you're not going to accomplish anything, right? Name is very important. In today's language, we call concepts important, right? How to conceptualize a thing is always the first step of studying something, right? So what is the name of China? You all know China is a word, is a name we use to describe the east part of the Eurasian continent for a long time, right? In most languages, we use China. But probably you don't know that the name of China comes from an ancient kingdom in China that once united the whole area of China, called Qin. So China comes from Qina, Qin. It does not come from the word describing porcelain. Actually, it's the other way around, right? We call China today is because it was produced in China, not because China is known for producing porcelain. That's a different kind of twist. But in today's Chinese language, we Chinese don't talk about China, don't call China China at all. We call it 中国, meaning central country, right? The Centralia idea, right? Middle country idea, which has nothing to do with China or Qin. So there's discrepancy. In terms of naming of China, we have two interpretations to start with, right? The world has one view when it's about China, oh, what a nice porcelain, or ancient kingdom. But when Chinese say 中国, I mean central country, middle country, very different, mind you. So that's a little kind of differences, right? Of course, in Chinese history, we have had other wonderful names, Han, Tang, for example, the great dynasties that are symbols of the wonderful culture of Chinese civilization. So therefore, sometimes we use Qin or Han or Tang to refer to China. So the very word China was translated back to Chinese in 8th century by a few Buddhist monks when they went to India, discovered in Sanskrit, the country they came from, at that time Tang, was called China. So they translated back called Zhina. So Zhina was actually Chinese translation. But as you all know, in Chinese language, this word Zhina is not very kind of a complementary, put that way. It's a little bit like branches, right? Kind of not too glamorous. So in the 20th century, especially after the 1930s, when the Japanese invaded China, they used the word 支那 to call China. The ancient Chinese translation, the Chinese all become really offended. So we don't want 支那 at all. So today in China, we don't use 支那. We don't use the phonetic translation of China anymore. We use 中国, right, instead of just phonetic translation of 支那. Only in one place in today's Chinese language, we keep the word 支那 alive. Where? Indochina. The word Indochina translated into Chinese is not called 印度中国. It's still called 印度支那. That's the only place we still have that. Other than that, 支那 is a bad word. We don't want that, right? So that's kind of a naming thing, right? Now, the place. I'm going to speed up a little bit because I understand that I probably over-prepared anyway. I'm going to mention to you the size and location of China, right? Let me do a little bit geography test here. Which country, in terms of territory size, is bigger? U.S. or PRC or China? Any takers? Which country is bigger? Yes, sir. China? Anybody else? So that's the consensus? China bigger? China. Consensus? U.S. All right. This is all about democracy, right? Different views. Wonderful.
Russia's the biggest.
Russia's biggest. That's true. That's true. Clearly. Oh, there's another one. China. All right. So if we vote in a democratic fashion, China seems bigger because there's 3 voices for China, 1 for U.S., 1 for Russia. Well, doesn't really count, right? In this case. But unfortunately, truth, as always, rests with the minority, right? In this case, U.S. actually is larger. Why the difference? People who graduated from Chinese schools, like I myself, always believe China is larger than the United States, right? But in fact, China is smaller than the United States. Taiwan doesn't count, actually. Taiwan coming back doesn't really make a difference. What's the difference? The difference is a huge chunk of territory. The Chinese call it Jiangnan, and Indians called Arunachal Pradesh. It's an Indian state that's under Indian control. China claims for its own. That territory, that piece of territory, is 9 times larger as Taiwan. That makes a difference. All right. In other words, in reality, U.S. is larger, but perception-wise, we think China is larger. There you go. Another fact of conflict, contradictions. Right. All right. Location. I want to make an important point here for you to hopefully take away, or we can debate about it. I think ecology and location really shape people's mind, right? Greatly. So Chinese location, the location of country China or 中国, really shapes how Chinese view themselves and view the world, right? So the Chinese has a traditional view called 大一统 or 天下 idea, meaning all under heaven ought to be united together, right? So for eons, for centuries, Chinese believe they have already united the whole world. The whole world there is China. Beyond that, insignificant barbarians, basically, right? So therefore, they call Japan the place sun rises. Would Japanese call their own homeland where the sun rises? Of course not. Because for Japanese, where the sun rises? It's to the east, Hawaii, right? Not in Japan. So the very name of Japan comes from China. The Chinese basically say, oh, you got to east, kind of a remote. That's where the sun rises, right? So that's the world is defined by the location of China, right? Take a look at this map, right? You'll see for the ancient Chinese people, they truthfully believe, they genuinely believed they have reached the end of the world, right? To the east, the biggest pound on planet Earth, the Pacific. Usually it's a one-way travel. You go out, right? You don't come back alive. To the north, frozen Siberia. Not so much there. If you march northward, usually also one-way trip. You don't come back. To the west, world's 2nd and 3rd largest desert and world's tallest mountains, the Tibetan Plateau. Usually also one-way trip. You don't come back, you stay alive. To the south, tropical jungles and deadly diseases. Malaria. In Chinese, we call 瘴气, like poison gas, right? So therefore, we, the Chinese, in ancient time, truthfully believe we reached the end of the world. nothing really significant beyond, right? That led to the formation of the idea the world is all here, and the world ought to be united for a variety of purposes, a variety of reasons, right? So the world unification idea is very deep in the Chinese mind, the Tianxia idea. We want to take care of the whole world same way, we want to run the whole world same way. This is determined by geography, by ecology. In terms of ecology, there is a rainfall line dividing China in two parts, the eastern and the west, right? And this rainfall line, incidentally, also is a dividing line of China demography, right? To the east of this line, territorial-wise, China is about 40% of Chinese territory. To the west of the line is 6% of Chinese territory. But guess what? Overwhelming majority of Chinese people always live on the east side, right? What's the majority? In 1920s was 96%. In 1980s was 93%. Today, you may be wondering, so what about today? Today's highly mobile now. We move west and so on. Today is still 91.7% east of the line, right? That's why the kind of population density you see coming in China is always on the east side. West side is very sparsely populated. If you think Alabama is sparsely populated, go to west of China. That's why you see that, right? East part is very condensed, right? That also created kind of a double concept of China. That is, China proper, that's where everything is. And the periphery, kind of insignificant. But nowadays, because technology become valuable, become important. Xinjiang, 1/6 Chinese territory, was considered for a long time just a place that you could afford to lose. Nothing significant. But now Xinjiang, for the first time in Chinese history, become economically valuable because natural resources, especially oil and gas, right? So this is kind of different. Tibet is still considered economically wasteland. And the Chinese government is spending billions on Tibet. It's money-losing kind of spending because you don't get much from Tibet. It's just high mountains, beautiful, breathtaking, literally breathtaking, very high, right? But you know that's it. But in the future, who knows? Tibet may become economically meaningful as well, right? That's in the future. One more thing I want to point out, and we'll move on, is the ethnic minority issue in China. This is where a lot of basics may not be known on the first cut, right? In China, officially, there are 50-some minority groups, ethnic groups. The Han, of course, is the majority. But the Han predominantly concentrated on the east one-third of the country, as you can see in the map here, right? The minorities, very tiny. They altogether is about 6 to 7% of the population, but they are regionally concentrated in the West, in Tibet, for example, regionally concentrated. That created a politically challenging issue of separatism because they wanted local autonomy. We are local majority here, right? It's like in Georgia, Georgians are local majority here. The Yankees get out, right? That's kind of idea. Bad joke, but you get the picture, basically. That's the idea, right? So that created an issue here. Now, all right, we compared that already. In terms of a temperature location, this is where China is. It is middle to south of the United States. So U.S. is colder than China overall, right? All right. One more thing. In terms of resource endowment, China is actually rich. It's all know it's a big country. But compared to the United States, China is relatively resource poor in many ways. For one thing, the arable land in China, then you can grow stuff, in China is very small. It's only 1/3 the size of the United States. What's the size of U.S. population in comparison to Chinese population? Another quiz, right? In terms of how big is U.S. population in comparison to Chinese population?
1/4.
1/4, right? You think about that. We have 1/4 of population, 3 times as much arable land. So the United States is truly kind of blessed in a way, right, in terms of land alone, right? And also look at China. High mountains, deserts, and big as the pond. And look at America, right? The highest point of America here, until America, is Pikes Peak in Colorado, which I didn't climb, I drove up. I'm kind of lazy. Pikes Peak on Tibetan Plateau will be considered the lowest point in Tibetan Plateau, right? That's the location. And we have 2 arguably 3 coastlines. China only had 1, right? And that one coastline is easily sealed in by outside forces. So the Chinese traditionally felt they had been sealed in, especially since 19th century, when modern Navy became important, right? So that's just a little comparison between U.S. and China, some kind of basics, right? Let's move on to another topic, the Greater China. The mainland, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau. Those are the official flags of those places, right? And we're going to talk about very quickly one by one. So first, let's talk about Taiwan. This is Taiwan, right? Taiwan Island, the main island of Taiwan, is only, and the narrowest point here is only 90 miles across. I don't know about Alabama. In Georgia, our drivers can make that in 1 hour. No big deal, right? Only 90 miles. Boom, you get there. So it's not too far away, right? It's very close, right? So that little distance, however, the little water, however, has created a de facto kind of independent country outside the Greater China context. That's the source of a lot of political troubles of our time and misunderstandings, right? So today's Taiwan include Taiwan, Penghu, Quemoy or Jinmen, and Mazhu here, little offshore islands, right? That's the kind of on a different political system and different governance. That's today Taiwan. So we call it cross-strait relationship, referring to mainland Taiwan relationship, right? All right. This is a little flag you probably have seen before if you are following Olympic Games, right? This is a Taiwanese Olympic flag that was approved and accepted by China, by PRC, in 1982, right? This was the product of a compromise at the time to recognize Taiwan as a separate entity, but yet not a country, right? So therefore they have an Olympic flag. But this Olympic flag does contain the ingredient of a Taiwanese national flag, if you will. Right? Look at this Taiwanese national flag. This thing, right, is in this. Accepting that back in 1982, a long time ago, before many of you guys were born, right, was one thing. But later on, it became an issue. So in 2008, when Beijing was hosting Olympic Games, Beijing raises the issue with Taiwanese, say, no more flag like that. We don't like this symbol, right? Take it out or you don't come. So there was a big brouhaha, you probably don't remember, in 2007, 2008, right? And eventually, of course, because the United States can say, if Taiwan is not going, we're not going. So Beijing sort of backed down. All right, same flag, right? What I'm trying to say here, there's a strong point to be made that the Chinese start to realize this is not even acceptable now, politically speaking. In 82 is fine, but today is different, right? Because today we want to reduce the significance of Taiwanese identity and treat Taiwan more like part of China. So therefore, this flag is now less popular, less acceptable to the Chinese than, say, 40, 30-some years ago, right? So in other words, things are evolving, right? That's one point I want to make here. All right, so how do we see Taiwan? I'm going to present to you 2 views, right? The alternative, identical, and contrasting narratives about Taiwan from Chinese point of view, meaning PRC and ROC before 1990s. And Taiwanese view means ROC after 1990s. So there's 2 sets of views about history. The first set is that Taiwan is always a part of China, no question asked, since ancient time. The other one is Taiwan is an island discovered only until 16th century by the Europeans. That's a different alternative idea, right? So the Chinese claim they first discovered Taiwan, recorded in their history books as early as the 2nd century CE, right? That's like 1800 years ago. But the alternative Taiwanese narrative is called Formosa. Formosa Insula was discovered by the Portuguese. They actually give it a Portuguese name, beautiful island, right? And then, of course, Chinese will argue that during the Yuan and the Ming dynasties in the 13th century, they actually established a governance structure over there. Not on mainland Taiwan, but on Penghu. It's called Penghu Xuanjian Si, right? That's the Chinese version. The Taiwanese version is it was never recorded in anything until 1582 by the Portuguese. Different view, right? And then, of course, they agree on the foreign occupation part by the Dutch, by the Spanish, and by the Chinese recovery of it, right? The Zheng Gong recovery of Taiwan versus the Kingdom of Tongning. That's Zheng Gong's official title, right? And then there's an agreement on Qing's rule. the Manchu dynasty's unification of Taiwan. And then, of course, the resisting Japanese, the Republic of Formosa idea, very briefly, a few months. And then, of course, Japanese rule, Japanese colonization of Taiwan. And then, of course, the ROC recovery of Taiwan, 1945 to 1949, very briefly. And then, of course, the unfinished Civil War, Chinese view, versus the Republic of Taiwan, independent until today. So two different views, right? Oops. Oh, okay, here we go. And in terms of people and personality, I'm just moving it quickly here. In other words, fundamentally now we have two competing different narratives on the island of Taiwan versus on mainland China, right? These two competing narratives are causing a lot of conflicts, lots of trouble for both sides and for the international community, right? Right now, internationally speaking, ROC on Taiwan or Taiwan itself is not considered a state, a country. It's considered part of China. But Taiwan enjoys de facto recognition from many countries, including the United States, right? We have a de facto relationship with Taiwan, right? American representatives in Taiwan are treated like diplomats and vice versa, even though we don't recognize it as a country. For China, this is just two governments of a civil war yet to be finished. Taiwan needs to be recovered and to be bring back to the motherland. So two competing views here, right? All right, so here's some images of Taiwan. Very briefly, I want to submit for you to consider several points. Between PRC and ROC, basically you are talking about a political opposition in general Chinese politics, right? ROC and its existence on Taiwan so far for the past 5 to 7 centuries, in my view, has been a catalyst for the political transformation and the political changes on mainland China, right? And vice versa. Without PRC, ROC probably would not really make its own political transformation either. So it's kind of like an opposition. And then between the concept of Taiwan and China, you have different narrative, different debate versus one country, de facto independence, but one country, or something different, right? Many would suggest it's only a matter of time for Taiwan to be united with China. That many would suggest that because PRC power is growing, international community does not recognize Taiwan as an independent country, so therefore it's only a matter of time. Taiwan come back, right? We'll see whether that's the case or not. But before I leave the topic of Taiwan, I want to show you this. This was the Chinese attitude toward Taiwan. That's called, we will liberate Taiwan with this, of course, we're going to liberate Taiwan. But things have changed. Right now, the Chinese attitude is this. It's like, we're going to unite with Taiwan peacefully. And President Xi Jinping pledged on the front page of People's Daily, saying, we will do good things for Taiwanese compatriots, just like we did good things for compatriots on mainland China, right? This kind of statement can be interpreted in different ways, right? Many of my friends on Taiwan will say, thank God, please not, right? That's kind of reaction. But people on mainland China, we're going to treat it as the same as our own people. So different views, different take, right? All right. How do Taiwanese people view those things? Well, here is a little diagram of the opinion survey done by what I think is the best opinion survey organization in Taiwan, Zhengda, 政治大学, NCCU. They did a kind of tracking. So from 1992 all the way to 2018, you see the opinion changes quite big on the island China. The green line represents people claim they're only Taiwanese, not Chinese, right? The purple line record people say, I'm Taiwanese, but I'm also Chinese, right? And the blue line record people say who believe they are Chinese only, not Taiwanese, right? The black line records people who don't know who they are. They think, oh, we're aliens, right? That kind of thing. As you can see, as time goes, many more Taiwanese now believe they are Taiwanese only, not Chinese, right? People who believe they are Chinese only now actually are smaller than the marginal error. That's where the worrisome sign is from Beijing's point of view. In other words, they think over time Taiwan is drifting away. It's drifting away because Taiwanese people don't claim themselves to be Chinese anymore, majority, right? That's kind of worrisome. This is another map. It's even more worrisome. This one is done by relatively green color, independence-leaning kind of organization, which claims that more Taiwanese now want independence right away. Very few want unification. That's kind of the Taiwanese attitude. Those opinions may or may not matter much in international relations, as you all know. International relations, muscles talk, right? So it may not matter much, but it indicates that Taiwan is indeed kind of drifting away, right? That's kind of something to be concerned. All right, I'm kind of running fast here. Hong Kong. Here's a timeline for what happens in Hong Kong. What is the Hong Kong issue, right? The first thing, of course, is the Qing Empire gave Hong Kong to the British, part of it, in 1842. That's the end of the Sino-Anglo War, Anglo-Sino War, or we call it Opium War, first Opium War, right? And then in 1860, they also gave Kowloon to British, so two little areas. And then in 1898, they sort of leased, this time it's not give, but leased new territory to the British. Altogether, that's the British colony of Hong Kong. And then, of course, following that, you know what happened is that British eventually negotiated with Beijing to return the whole thing to China on the condition the place will be kept unchanged for 50 years of its own legal, political systems, economic systems. It's called high degree of autonomy. In other words, Hong Kong court will have the final say on any cases. Beijing will not intervene in local matters. And Hong Kong will not argue with Beijing about who belongs to whom, right? Of course, Hong Kong belongs to China, part of China, right? What happened after 1997 was high hopes, but the high hopes were quickly dashed, unfortunately, right? And of course, it peaked in 2014 with the so-called umbrella movement, and of course now getting intensified in the kind of anti-extradition bill, Fan Song Zong movement, and is currently going on. As we speak, yesterday, there even more violence going on over there, demonstrations and accusations and so on. So Hong Kong now is boiling, basically, right? It's kind of unfortunate because Hong Kong, in many ways, in my humble opinion, Hong Kong probably is the most open, the most liberal, the most advanced part of Greater China. But that part now is in trouble. That's really discouraging, depressing, if you will, right? In other words, we see trouble in the best developed region of China, not in the least developed place in China. For example, Xinjiang, Tibet would be more expected, but here's in Taiwan. That's quite depressing and also very significant, right? So here's the kind of map of Hong Kong. This is new territory, this is Kowloon, and this is Hong Kong itself. This one is more clear. So the British literally gave these two pieces of property to the Qing dynasty, Chinese government at the time, gave these two territories, Kowloon and Hong Kong, to British. And then British leased all this territory from them, from Chinese, for 99 years. So lease was due in 97. The British, in order to preserve the welfare and its investment in the whole region, wanted to lease the whole thing again. The Chinese denied that under Deng Xiaoping's leadership. They said, no way. And the British said, well, how about if we return only the least part to you, but keep these two islands? But the British themselves shoot our proposition down because we all know these two pieces of territory will not be able to survive well without new territory. Because legally, the British could have argued that way. Because legally, these two were British territory. And the green part was leased territory, Chinese territory. I'm renting from you, basically, right? So the British said, okay, I'm going to return everything to you on condition 50 years, no change. The Chinese very ingenious proposal is called one country, two systems. So they allow Hong Kong, the whole area, be part of China on condition on a different system, right? It's called one country, two systems. That is now being questioned quite seriously by many in Hong Kong. That, in my opinion, is a root cause of troubles over there, right? Because one country system, the kind of a blueprint offered by Deng Xiaoping back in the 1980s now seems to be shaky, right? As people said, no more. We want real one country systems, not this kind of losing one country systems. That's, in my opinion, is at a root level. Unfortunately, the opposition in Hong Kong is poorly organized. So there has been quite a bit disorganized, even violent activities going on, which is unfortunate because Taiwan and mainland are such important partners together, right? As you see, Taiwan and Hong Kong are mainland and Hong Kong are mutually dependent on each other quite a bit. It's easy to understand Hong Kong depends on mainland for food, water, manpower, and all kinds of stuff, right? But it's harder probably to understand that mainland also needs Hong Kong in an important way. For example, the critical access to foreign market capital and technology often takes place through Hong Kong, right? From 1970s until today, foreign capital goes to China quite a bit. 65 to 90% of them, depending on which year, all through Hong Kong. Even this year, from January to July, still 73.8% of foreign capital goes to China, all through Hong Kong. So can you imagine for China to lose Hong Kong? Hardly, right? Finally, the point about the relationship between Hong Kong and mainland is that the United States and Western countries have granted Hong Kong a special status, right? Given Hong Kong special rights. And that now increasingly is going to be pending on what Beijing is doing to Hong Kong. Become serious. As we speak today, the U.S. Congress will vote on a new law saying we're going to have an annual review of what's going on over there, instead of sticking to the old U.S. law that was passed in 1992, many years ago, to grant Hong Kong special status. This actually, in my opinion, is a big alarm bell, right? Because if the United States took away the special treatment to Hong Kong will be considered part of its PRC completely. That will be detrimental to the Hong Kong economy. And in turn, will be very bad for PRC economy as well. They're going to lose all this access to foreign capital and foreign technology. That's going to be a big deal. The implication of that is very hard to imagine, right? All right. So what is going on here is clearly we now see there are political problems between Hong Kong and mainland, and there are social political differences between the two parts, right? Hong Kong now become quite emotional issue. I want to point out, though, the Hong Kong demonstrators so far, to be fair, only very few of them really want independence. So to label the whole thing as wanting independence was misleading. So I'm worried people on mainland China may be actually misleading themselves by claiming, oh, those guys are demonstrating for independence. It's completely wrong. Very, very, very few Hong Kong people want independence. Most of them want what? Want kind of Beijing to retreat a little bit. Let them keep their one country, two systems. That's the argument, right? That argument, unfortunately, lost. So therefore, you have ugly kind of things going on currently. I do have a little short video. Maybe I don't have time to show it, but I'm going to skip that. This basically short video is show you how the emotionally charged accusation on both sides now are hurting everybody, right? Now people start accusing each other with even profanities because they think, you don't understand me, you don't understand me. You want something I cannot give you, and I want something you don't give me. That's kind of argument, right? Just imagine if you had a quarrel with a significant other for something that highly emotionally charged. It's similar to that. Very, very bad development. As a result, many Hong Kongers, Hong Kong people, now are developing a kind of unfriendly attitude toward mainland China, and vice versa. Because in mainland China, we don't have a really massive, reliable opinion survey, so I cannot tell. But official media on China, on mainland China, is increasingly having an animosity towards Hong Kong now. On Hong Kong, there's opinion survey and indicating more and more Hong Kong people are unhappy with the kind of one country, two system under Beijing's control, right? And according to economists, now almost nobody in Hong Kong under 30 identifies as Chinese. That's a bad sign, because the future is always young people's future, right? And if young people think they are not Chinese anymore, that's a bad sign. Consider Hong Kong is legally part of China already. There's no issue about independence, actually. Very, very few people really talk about that. But you don't consider yourself to be Chinese. It's like most people, young people in Alabama consider themselves not Americans anymore. That's dangerous, right? Then you're talking about maybe Republic of Alabama or something, that's really scary. Chances very slim, but that's what happened. And this is like the opinion surveys, as you can see. Very few people consider them to be a Chinese anymore. Look at this, 18 to 29 age group. You consider yourself a Chinese? It's almost none. That's significant, right? As you can imagine. That's where the problem is. All right. This is beautiful Hong Kong. Hong Kong is really truly, truly beautiful, mesmerizing Asian city, right? Wonderful place. Look at this, right? I like this boat quite a bit. You can rent it. I mean, for party, it's fun. It's great, right? It's wonderful. But now, unfortunately, ugly picture like this is capturing people's attention around the world. It's already delivering economic blows against Hong Kong already, big time, right? Hong Kong economy is in a negative territory now, right? And lots of tycoons are moving money out of Hong Kong, and many new investment projects being canceled in Hong Kong because they don't want to do anything. That's significant, because Hong Kong has only 6-7 million people, highly dependent on foreign capital, foreign contracts, and so on, and tourists, right? This is bad, right? And look at this. Hong Kong people are considered traditionally to be highly pragmatic, commercial people. For them to match in numbers on street is very unusual, right? I have not been in Hong Kong for over a year, so I don't know what's really people think, but I can sense they must feel very strongly, very tense feeling, right? And of course, another video here, but I'll forget about it. But this kind of picture is very ugly, and this become iconic picture, right? For Hong Kong police to pull a service revolver against a demonstrator like that, it reminds people of classic views from Vietnamese war era and so on. It's kind of scary picture, right? This, unfortunately, does not represent Hong Kong, but now is capturing attention from all over the world. And that's where the problem is, right? All right. This is something I'm going to show you why the special treatment Hong Kong receives from the United States is important. Look at this. This is how many countries will take your passport without a visa to let you visit their country, right?